The funeral flowers had barely wilted when the phone calls began. I stood in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after we buried Robert, watching steam rise from my untouched coffee. The ceramic mug, the one with "World's Best Grandma" that my granddaughter Olivia had given me years ago, felt foreign in my hands now. Everything felt foreign. The house, my reflection in the hallway mirror, even my own voice when I answered the relentless phone calls from my children. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Mom, we need to talk about the house. Amelia's voice carried that familiar tone of barely contained impatience, the same one she'd used as a teenager when asking for money. Only now at 32, she wasn't asking. I set the mug down without taking a sip. Good morning to you too, Amelia. Don't start with me. Mark and I have been discussing your situation, and frankly, it's not sustainable. This house is too big for you alone. The mortgage payments. There is no mortgage. The words came out flat. Factual. Robert had paid it off 5 years ago, but I'd never mentioned that detail to the children. They'd assumed, and I'd let them. A pause. Then that laugh, sharp, dismissive. The same laugh she'd inherited from her father, though Robert had used it with affection. Amelia wielded it like a weapon. Mom, please. Dad's pension barely covers your medications. We all know the financial strain you're under. I walked to the window above the sink, looking out at the garden Robert and I had tended for 23 years. The roses needed pruning. The herb garden was overgrown. Tasks that once brought us joy now stood as monuments to everything I'd lost. Your concern is touching, I said, my reflection catching in the glass. Gray hair that needed coloring, lines that had deepened in the past month. 63 years of living etched into features that still surprise me in mirrors. Don't be dramatic. Adam agrees with me. We think you should consider moving in with one of us. Adam agrees. I turned from the window. My son hadn't called since the funeral. Hadn't answered when I'd called him. When exactly did Adam share this opinion? Another pause. I could almost see Amelia running her hand through her thinning hair, a gesture she'd picked up from Robert. We had dinner last night as a family to discuss your options. Your options, not our mother's future, or how we can help Mom through this difficult time. My options, as if I were a problem to be solved rather than a person to be supported. I see. I opened the refrigerator, staring at the casserole dishes still stacked inside, offerings from well-meaning neighbors that I hadn't touched. And these options include selling my home? It makes financial sense. You could help Mark and me with our down payment. We've been looking at that colonial on Maple Street. And Adam could use some assistance with Olivia's college fund. It's a win-win situation. I closed the refrigerator door with more force than necessary. A win-win situation. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. But she had meant it exactly like that. Amelia had always been transparent in her selfishness, even as a child. It was almost refreshing compared to Adam's subtle manipulations, the way he'd learned to ask for things sideways, making me feel guilty for not offering what he'd never directly requested. What did you tell your brother about my finances? I asked. Just the truth. That Dad's pension isn't enough, that the house is too much for you to handle alone, that you're probably struggling more than you're letting on. The truth, as if she knew anything about my actual circumstances. As if any of them had bothered to ask detailed questions about Robert's affairs, about the investments he'd made, about the modest inheritance from his mother that we'd quietly saved and invested over the years. I thought about the folder in Robert's desk drawer, the one I'd found while sorting through his papers. Bank statements, investment portfolios, the deed to a small villa in Tuscany that he'd purchased as a surprise for our retirement. A place where we can watch sunsets and drink wine without anyone asking us for anything, he'd said, showing me the photographs just 6 months before his heart attack. I'll think about it, I said finally. Mom, we're not asking you to think about it. We're telling you what needs to happen. Mark found a buyer already. His cousin Gregory is in real estate and he's got a client who's very interested. Cash offer. Quick closing. Start packing your bags. My hand tightened on the phone. You found a buyer for my house? We're trying to help you, Mom. The sooner you accept that this is the best solution for everyone, the easier this transition will be. Transition, as if grief were a business merger. As if the dismantling of 30 years of marriage could be reduced to paperwork and profit margins. And where exactly am I supposed to live during this transition? Well, that's what we wanted to discuss. Adam's got that finished basement, and with Olivia away at college most of the year, there's plenty of space. You'd have your own entrance, your own bathroom. It could work out perfectly. Adam's basement. The same basement that flooded every spring, where he stored Christmas decorations and exercise equipment he never used. The same basement where I'd been relegated during last year's Thanksgiving dinner while the real adults ate upstairs. How generous of Adam to offer. He's excited about it, actually. Thinks it could be good for both of you. You could help with Olivia when she's home from school. Maybe do some cooking. You know how Adam struggles with meal planning. Of course, Adam struggled with meal planning the same way he struggled with laundry, cleaning, and remembering to call his mother. But he excelled at delegating these struggles to others, particularly to the woman who'd raised him to be self-sufficient. And Amelia, I asked, what role do you play in this arrangement? Mark and I will handle the house sale, obviously. The paperwork, the negotiations. We'll make sure you get a fair price. Fair? I almost laughed. Amelia's definition of fairness had always been tilted in her favor, like a carnival game designed to separate fools from their money. I need to think about this, I repeated. Mom, there's nothing to think about. Gregory's client is serious. They want to close within the month. A month. They were giving me a month to dismantle the life Robert and I had built together, to surrender the home where we'd hosted their birthday parties and graduation celebrations, where we'd nursed them through chickenpox and heartbreak and the various crises of young adulthood. I said, I need to think about it. Fine, but don't take too long. Good opportunities don't wait around forever. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, holding the phone, listening to the sudden silence that seemed to echo through the empty house. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked. A car door slammed. Life continuing its normal rhythm while mine spun out of control. I walked to Robert's study, to the desk where he'd paid bills and planned our future for over 2 decades. The folder was still there, hidden beneath old tax returns. I pulled it out and spread the contents across the wooden surface we'd bought at an estate sale when Amelia was still in high school. Bank statements showing balances that would make my children's eyes widen. Investment portfolios that had weathered market storms and emerged stronger. The deed to the villa in Italy, complete with photographs of whitewashed walls and a terrace overlooking the Tuscan hills. Robert had been a quiet man, methodical in his planning. He'd never boasted about money, never flaunted our security. Let them think we're struggling, he'd said once when Amelia had asked for yet another loan. It builds character. I thought he was being cruel then. Now I understood it as wisdom. My phone buzzed. A text from Adam. Mom, Amelia told me about the house. I know this is hard, but it's really for the best. Olivia's so excited about having Grandma closer. Can't wait to discuss the details. Olivia, my granddaughter, who'd spent summers with Robert and me, who'd learned to bake cookies in this kitchen and plant tomatoes in this garden, who'd called me every week during her first semester at college, homesick and overwhelmed, seeking comfort from the grandmother who'd always had time for her stories. When was the last time Olivia had called? 2 months ago? 3? I scrolled through my phone looking for recent messages from my granddaughter. Nothing since Christmas, when she'd sent a group text thanking everyone for gifts. No personal messages, no requests for advice, no updates about her classes or her boyfriend or her plans for summer break. The silence stretched around me, heavy with realization. They'd already moved on. All of them. Robert's death had been an inconvenience to be managed, not a loss to be mourned together, and I was simply another inconvenience. Another problem requiring their efficient solution. I closed the folder and returned it to the drawer. Then I walked upstairs to my bedroom, to the closet where Robert's clothes still hung, still carrying the faint scent of his aftershave. I pulled out a suitcase from the top shelf. It was time to start packing, but not the kind of packing Amelia expected. The law office smelled of leather and old paper, a scent that reminded me of Robert's study but felt infinitely more powerful. I sat across from Maria Rossi, the estate attorney Robert had chosen years ago. A sharp woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Hayes, I have to say this is highly unusual. Maria spread the documents across her mahogany desk, each page crisp and official. Your husband was very specific about these contingencies, but I never expected we'd need to implement them. I smoothed my black dress, the same one I'd worn to the funeral, and kept my voice steady. Robert always said I underestimated people's capacity for selfishness. I'm beginning to think he was protecting me from a truth I wasn't ready to see. Maria nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of a document. The revocable trust he established gives you complete control over all assets. The children were never named as beneficiaries of the real estate, only the life insurance policy. Everything else, the house, the investments, the property in Italy, belongs entirely to you. And they don't know about the Italian property? According to Robert's instructions, that information was to be shared only with you and only after the initial 30-day period following his death. Maria leaned back in her chair. He seemed to anticipate that your children might pressure you into hasty decisions. Pressure. Such a polite word for what Amelia had attempted. I thought about her voice on the phone yesterday, demanding rather than requesting, treating me like an incompetent child who couldn't manage her own affairs. The house sale they've arranged, I said. Can it be stopped? You're the sole owner. No sale can proceed without your signature. If they found a buyer and are making promises, they're operating under false assumptions. Maria's smile was thin but satisfied. Robert was very clear about protecting your autonomy. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of anxiety I'd carried since Amelia's call. And the Italian property? Fully paid, legally yours. The property management company Robert contracted sends monthly reports. The house has been maintained and is ready for occupancy whenever you choose. Whenever you choose. When was the last time someone had spoken to me about choice rather than obligation? Maria pulled out another folder. There's something else Robert wanted you to have. He wrote this letter to be given to you exactly 1 month after his death. Today marks that date. The envelope was cream-colored, my name written in Robert's careful script. My hands trembled as I opened it, and his voice seemed to fill the sterile office. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're dealing with the aftermath alone. I know our children, love them though we do, and I suspect they're already circling like vultures, convinced they know what's best for you. They don't. You are not a burden to be managed or a problem to be solved. You are an intelligent, capable woman who raised 2 children, supported a husband through his career changes, and managed our household with grace and wisdom for over 30 years. Don't let them convince you otherwise. The money and properties are yours to do with as you please. Keep them, sell them, give them away. It's your choice. But make that choice based on what you want, not what others expect from you. I've watched you sacrifice your own dreams for decades, always putting our family first. Now it's time to put yourself first. Go to Italy if you want. Travel the world. Write that novel you always talked about. Whatever brings you joy. The children will survive without your constant sacrifice. In fact, they might even grow stronger for it. With all my love and faith in your strength, Robert. P.S. The key to the Italian house is in my desk drawer behind the photo of us in Venice. Mrs. Romano next door has been caring for the garden and speaks excellent English. I read the letter twice, my vision blurring at the edges. Robert had known. He'd seen what I was too close to recognize, that my children had learned to view my love as a resource to be exploited rather than a gift to be treasured. Are you all right? Maria's voice was gentle. I folded the letter carefully. I'm better than I've been in weeks. What do I need to do to transfer the house deed to my name alone? It's already in your name alone. Robert removed the children from all property deeds 3 years ago after Amelia asked him to co-sign on that failed restaurant investment. The restaurant. I remembered the arguments, Amelia's anger when Robert refused to risk our retirement savings on her sure thing. At the time, I thought Robert was being harsh. Now I saw it as prescient. There's one more thing, Maria said, pulling out a smaller envelope. Robert asked me to give you this bank card and PIN. It's connected to an account he opened last year. He called it your Independence Fund. The bank card felt solid in my palm. How much? $50,000. He deposited money every month, telling me it was for when Eleanor finally decides to live for herself. $50,000. Money I knew nothing about. Saved from his pension and investment dividends while I carefully budgeted our household expenses. Money intended to give me freedom rather than security. I left the law office with a briefcase full of documents and a clarity I hadn't felt since before Robert's heart attack. The house was mine. The Italian villa was mine. The investments were mine. And most importantly, the choice of what to do with all of it was mine alone. My phone rang as I reached my car. Adam's name on the screen. Mom, I'm so glad I caught you. I wanted to discuss the basement renovations. My wife knows a contractor who could put in a kitchenette for you. Maybe a separate entrance. It would be perfect. Your own little apartment. I unlocked the car but didn't get in. How thoughtful. I know you're probably worried about the cost, but Amelia and I figured we could deduct it from the house sale proceeds. Think of it as an investment in your comfort. Your comfort, not my independence or my happiness. My comfort, like I was an elderly pet being relocated to more manageable quarters. Adam, when was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? A pause. What do you mean? I mean, a phone call where you didn't want something, where you asked about my day, my feelings, my plans, when you called because you missed talking to your mother. Mom, that's not fair. I've been dealing with Olivia's college expenses, and you know how busy work has been. Olivia's college expenses. I leaned against my car, watching other people go about their normal Thursday afternoon errands. Tell me about Olivia's expenses. Well, tuition is $28,000 a year, plus room and board, books, her sorority fees. Adam, I've been sending Olivia $500 every month since she started college for 2 years. That's $12,000. Silence. Money that was supposed to help with her expenses. Money you never mentioned to Amelia when you discussed my supposed financial struggles. Mom, that money helps, but it doesn't cover everything. Have you told Olivia that I send that money? Another pause. Longer this time. She knows you help out. Does she know the amount? Does she know it comes from my pension, not from some college fund Robert left behind? I don't see why those details matter. I closed my eyes, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. She doesn't know, does she? She thinks her college expenses are covered by her hard work and sacrifice. She has no idea that her grandmother has been quietly funding her education. Mom, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Am I? Or am I finally seeing how simple it actually is? I hung up and got into my car. My hands were shaking, but not from grief this time. From anger. Pure, clean anger that felt like waking up after a long, confusing dream. At home, I went straight to Robert's desk and found the key exactly where he'd said it would be. It was small and brass, attached to a keychain with a tiny Italian flag. Behind it was a photograph I'd forgotten about. Robert and me in Venice on our 25th anniversary, both of us laughing at something the photographer had said. I looked younger in the photo, but not because of fewer wrinkles or grayer hair. I looked younger because I looked genuinely happy, unguarded in a way I couldn't remember being in recent years. My phone buzzed with another text from Amelia. Mom, Gregory needs an answer by tomorrow. His client is getting impatient. Don't mess this up for all of us. Don't mess this up for all of us. I deleted the message without responding and opened my laptop. It took me 20 minutes to find the property management company's website and another 10 minutes to compose an email to Mrs. Romano, the neighbor who'd been caring for the Italian house. Dear Mrs. Romano, my name is Eleanor Hayes, and I am Robert's widow. I believe you have been caring for our house on Via del Rose. I am planning to visit Italy very soon and would like to arrange to stay in the house for an extended period. Please let me know what preparations need to be made. Thank you for your kindness in maintaining the property during this difficult time. Sincerely, Eleanor Hayes. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I pulled out the suitcase I'd retrieved yesterday and began to pack. But first, I opened Amelia's childhood closet and began filling boxes with her old trophies, school papers, and the dollhouse Robert had built her for her 10th birthday. Everything that mattered from her time in this house, carefully wrapped and labeled. I was halfway through Adam's room when my phone rang. An international number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Isabella Romano. I just received your email and I am so sorry for your loss. Robert spoke of you often. Her English was accented but clear, her voice warm in a way that made my chest tight with unexpected emotion. Thank you, Mrs. Romano. I hope it's not too much trouble, but I'm thinking about coming to Italy quite soon. Oh, no trouble at all. The house is ready. I check on it every week, and the garden is beautiful. Robert would be so happy to know you were coming. When were you thinking to arrive? I looked around Adam's childhood bedroom, at the boxes of memories I was packing for children who saw me as an obstacle to their inheritance. Next week, I said. I'd like to come next week. The moving truck arrived at 7 in the morning, just as Amelia's car pulled into my driveway. I watched from my bedroom window as my daughter climbed out, her face already set in the expression of barely controlled irritation I'd learned to dread. She was wearing her serious business suit, the one Mark had picked out for her job interviews, and carrying a manila folder thick with what I assumed were house sale documents. Perfect timing. The movers were efficient, professional men who'd arrived exactly when promised. I'd hired them to collect the carefully packed boxes from Amelia and Adam's old rooms, along with several pieces of furniture they'd claimed to want someday: Robert's leather armchair, the antique dining set from my mother, the piano Adam had begged for as a child and abandoned after 6 months of lessons. Ma'am, where do you want these boxes delivered? The lead mover, a kind-faced man named Marco, a coincidence that felt like Robert's subtle humor, consulted his clipboard. The first set goes to 247 Maple Street, I said, handing him Amelia's address written in careful script. The second set to 892 Pine Avenue. Ring the doorbell and tell them these are gifts from Eleanor Hayes. Memories they'll want to keep safe. Marco nodded professionally, but I caught the slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. 20 years in the moving business probably meant he'd seen his share of family drama. Amelia's sharp knock interrupted my instructions. I opened the door wearing the red dress Robert had always said brought out my eyes, my hair freshly styled, looking nothing like the grieving widow she expected to manipulate. Mom, what the hell is going on? Why is there a moving truck in your driveway? Good morning, Amelia. I'm having some things moved. She pushed past me into the hallway, her eyes scanning the boxes labeled with her name. These are my things. My childhood things. Why are you packing up my stuff? I thought you'd want them. Memories are precious, don't you think? Her face flushed, a red that started at her collar and crept upward. The same look she'd gotten as a teenager when caught in lies. Mom, we need to talk. Gregory's client is ready to make an offer. We need your signature today. I closed the door and leaned against it, watching her pace my entryway like a caged animal. Amelia, sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you're acting so strange. First, you don't return my calls for 3 days. Now there's a moving truck. Sit down. Something in my voice stopped her mid-sentence. She sat on the bottom step of the staircase, the manila folder clutched in her hands like a shield. Where exactly did you tell Gregory's client the money from this house sale would go? I asked. What do you mean? I mean, did you tell them the proceeds would be split between you and Adam? Did you calculate how much you'd each receive after paying off this mysterious mortgage you're so worried about? Amelia's jaw tightened. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. Grief can cloud judgment. My judgment is perfectly clear, clearer than it's been in years. I walked to Robert's chair, the one the movers would soon carry to Amelia's house, whether she wanted it or not. Let me ask you something else. When you had dinner with Adam to discuss my situation, did either of you ask how I was handling Robert's death emotionally? Of course we care about. Did you ask if I was sleeping, eating, if I needed someone to talk to, or just needed company? Did you ask what I might want to do with my life now that I'm alone for the first time in 30 years? She stared at me, the folder crinkling in her grip. Or did you spend the entire dinner calculating how much money you could extract from your father's death? That's not fair, isn't it? I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. Let's see. If you sold my house for the amount Gregory quoted, $350,000, and split it between you and Adam after imaginary closing costs, you'd each get about $160,000. Am I close? The color drained from her face. That's what I thought. Amelia, do you know what your father's actual pension pays me monthly? Mom, I don't see why. For $1,200 every month, along with his Social Security and the dividend payments from investments you know nothing about. I let the numbers sink in. Tell me again how I can't afford to keep this house. Amelia stood up abruptly, the folder falling to the floor. You lied to us. I never lied. You assumed, and I didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference. You let us think you were struggling. You wanted to think I was struggling. It made it easier to justify treating me like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be supported. The moving truck's engine rumbled outside. Through the window, I could see the men loading Robert's chair into the back. Mom, if you don't need the money, then why? Amelia stopped, her businesswoman's brain finally catching up. You're punishing us. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. That's not what we asked for, isn't it? You asked me to move out of my house. I'm moving. You wanted my belongings distributed, so they wouldn't be a burden. I'm distributing them. I picked up the folder she'd dropped, glancing at the sale documents with Gregory's agency letterhead. You wanted to handle my affairs for me. But Amelia, the problem is these aren't your affairs to handle. She grabbed for the folder, but I held it away from her. Mom, be reasonable. We can work this out. Maybe you don't have to move to Adams. We could find you a nice apartment. Something more manageable. More manageable for whom? The question hung between us like a blade. Amelia's mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't incriminate her further. My phone rang. Adam's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, I said. Put it on speaker. Amelia shook her head, but I answered anyway and activated the speaker. Mom, what is this insanity? There's a moving truck at my house and 2 men are trying to deliver a piano I don't have room for. Hello, Adam. The piano you begged for when you were 8. I thought you'd want it back. I don't want it back. I have no room for a piano. And Amelia called me about some crazy idea that you're not selling the house. The house isn't being sold. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, what do you mean it's not being sold? I mean exactly that. This is my house. Robert left it to me. I'm not selling it. But Amelia said you couldn't afford. Amelia was wrong about many things. Another silence, longer this time. When Adam spoke again, his voice had that sharp edge I remembered from his teenage years. Mom, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but people are counting on this sale. I've already talked to Olivia about her having a bedroom at my house when you move in. Olivia. I looked at Amelia, whose face had gone pale. Tell me about Olivia, Adam. When was the last time she called me? I don't keep track of Olivia's phone calls. The last time she called me was December 15th, Christmas break. She wanted to know if I'd send her money for a spring break trip. I walked to the window, watching the movers secure Robert's chair. She didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't mention missing her grandfather. Just needed money. Mom, Olivia's a college student. They're self-absorbed at that age. Is she? Or has she learned from watching her mother that grandmothers exist to provide financial support without expecting emotional connection in return? That's not, you're twisting everything. Am I? Adam, how much money have I sent Olivia over the past 2 years? No answer. $12,000. $500 a month directly to her account. Money you never mentioned to Amelia when you claimed I was financially struggling. Money Olivia apparently believes comes from your sacrifice, not mine. Amelia was staring at me now, her mouth slightly open. You've been sending Olivia money every month? Since she started college. Because I love my granddaughter and want her to succeed. I turned from the window to face them both, Amelia in person, Adam through the phone. But love isn't supposed to be invisible. Support isn't supposed to be secret. When did my family decide that my contributions only mattered when they were hidden? Adam's voice came through the speaker, smaller now. Mom, we never meant. Yes, you did. You meant exactly this. You wanted my resources without my presence, my money without my opinions, my compliance without my autonomy. I ended the call and looked at Amelia. The moving truck will be at your house in 30 minutes. I suggest you make room for your childhood memories. Mom, please, we can fix this. How? The question stopped her cold. I could see her searching for the right words, the magic phrase that would restore her access to my resources without requiring genuine respect or relationship. We could have dinner as a family. Talk about what you really want. What I really want. I laughed, surprising myself with the sound. Amelia, what I really want is to live the rest of my life surrounded by people who see me as more than a source of emergency funding. What I want is to wake up in the morning without wondering which of my children will call with their hand extended. What I want is to be missed for my company, not mourned for my money. The moving truck's engine started outside. Amelia stood up, the business documents scattered at her feet. Where are you going to go? I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. Somewhere warm. Amelia bent to gather the papers, her movements hurried and desperate. Mom, you can't just disappear. We're your family. Are you? She looked up at me from the floor, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap after nightmares, who needed band-aids for scraped knees and stories to chase away the dark. Then she straightened and the moment passed. When will you be back? I opened the front door, letting in the morning sunlight and the sound of the moving truck pulling away. I'll let you know. The flight to Rome was 13 hours of crystalline clarity. I sat in the window seat Robert had always preferred, watching the Atlantic Ocean spread beneath us like a vast promise. The woman beside me, a chatty retiree from Phoenix visiting her daughter, had tried to engage me in conversation during takeoff, but something in my expression must have warned her off. I wasn't ready for small talk or the casual intimacy of airplane confessions. I was too busy savoring the silence of my phone. For 3 days after Amelia left my house, they'd called incessantly. Amelia, Adam, even Mark, who'd never called me independently in the 5 years he'd been married to my daughter. The voicemails started apologetic and grew increasingly desperate. Mom, I think we had a misunderstanding. Eleanor, it's Mark. Amelia is really upset, and I think if we could just talk. Mom, Olivia is asking questions about the money, and I don't know what to tell her. Fine, Mom. You want to play games? Two can play that game. Don't expect us to come running when you realize how lonely you are. That last message from Adam had crystallized something essential. The threat was supposed to wound me. The suggestion that I'd come crawling back, begging for their conditional affection. Instead, it felt like liberation. I'd turned off my phone that evening and hadn't turned it back on since. The customs officer in Rome was a young woman with kind eyes who stamped my passport with professional efficiency. Purpose of visit. Starting over, I said. She smiled. The first genuine smile I'd received from anyone under 40 in months. Welcome to Italy, Signora. Isabella Romano was waiting for me in the arrivals area, exactly as she'd promised. She was a compact woman in her early 60s with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun and eyes that crinkled with warmth when she smiled. She held a small sign with my name written in careful script. Mrs. Hayes? Welcome. Welcome. She embraced me like an old friend, and I found myself returning the hug with an intensity that surprised us both. How was your flight? Are you tired? Hungry? The house is ready for you. I made some simple food, just basics until you can shop for yourself. Her English was excellent, spoken with an accent that made everything sound musical. As we walked to her small Fiat, she chattered about the weather, the neighborhood, the garden she'd been tending in my absence. Robert, he was so proud of this house, she said as we drove through the winding streets of Tuscany. He would show me pictures on his phone. You in the kitchen in America, your grandchildren. Always your grandchildren. My Eleanor will love the kitchen here, he would say. She will make it sing with life. I pressed my lips together, not trusting my voice. Robert had talked about me here, in this place I'd never seen, to this woman I'd never met. He'd imagined a future for us that death had stolen, but somehow Isabella's words made it feel real again. The house took my breath away. It was smaller than our American home, but perfectly proportioned, with whitewashed walls and green shutters that caught the afternoon light. Bougainvilleas spilled over the garden walls in explosions of purple and pink, and lemon trees heavy with fruit lined the stone pathway to the front door. It's beautiful, I whispered. Robert, he chose well, Isabella said, producing the brass key I'd found in his desk. Come, let me show you inside. The interior was cool and bright, with terracotta floors and windows that opened onto a small terrace overlooking the rolling hills. The furniture was simple but elegant. A couch the color of cream, a wooden dining table for four, built-in bookcases waiting to be filled. In the kitchen, copper pots hung from hooks, and the countertops were tiled in blues and whites that reflected the sky beyond. I stocked the refrigerator with basics, Isabella said, opening cabinets to show me plates and glasses, olive oil and wine. There's bread, cheese fruit. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow we explore the village together. Yes, I nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger who owed me nothing but had cared for my husband's dream as if it were her own. Isabella, I can't thank you enough. No thanks necessary. We are neighbors now. In Italy, neighbors are family. She patted my arm gently. I live just there. She pointed through the window to a similar house 50 yards away. So if you need anything at all, you call me. Robert made me promise to take care of you. After she left, I stood alone in my Italian kitchen and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. I unpacked slowly, hanging my clothes in the bedroom closet, placing Robert's photograph on the bedside table, arranging my toiletries in the bright bathroom with its clawfoot tub and window facing the hills. Each action felt deliberate, meaningful in a way that packing boxes for Amelia and Adam had not. As the sun began to set, I poured myself a glass of the wine Isabella had left and stepped onto the terrace. The Tuscan hills stretched endlessly before me, painted in shades of gold and coral by the dying light. Cypress trees stood in the distance like dark prayers, and the sound of cicadas in the olive groves created a rhythm that seemed to match my heartbeat. My phone, forgotten in my purse, began to ring. I considered ignoring it. I'd successfully avoided all contact for 4 days, but something made me check the caller ID. Olivia, my granddaughter, calling for the first time since Christmas. I answered on the 4th ring. Grandma, oh my God, finally. I've been trying to reach you for days. Her voice sounded different, not the casual entitlement I'd grown used to, but something sharper, more focused. Hello, Olivia. Grandma, where are you? Mom won't tell me anything except that you had some kind of fight with her and Uncle Adam, and now you're gone and there's all this weird drama about a house sale that didn't happen. Olivia, slow down. I can't slow down. I'm furious. Do you know what I found out? Do you know what Mom told me yesterday? I sank into one of the terrace chairs, watching the last light fade from the sky. What did she tell you? She told me you've been sending me money for college, $500 every month for 2 years. She said it like it was some big burden she'd been hiding to protect me. But Grandma, Olivia's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't I know? The pain in her voice cut through me like a blade. Your mother thought it was better. Better for who? Better for her so she could take credit for my tuition payments? Better for Uncle Adam so he could pretend you were poor and needed to sell your house. Olivia was crying now, ugly sobs that carried across the ocean connection. Grandma, I am so ashamed. I am so ashamed. Olivia, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, I do. I let them convince me you were just this sad old lady who needed taking care of. I stopped calling because Mom said you were fragile and might get too attached if I talked to you too much. She said it was healthier to give you space to grieve. Healthier. I closed my eyes, feeling the warm Italian breeze carry the scent of lemons and rosemary. "So I gave you space," Olivia continued, her voice getting stronger with anger. "And meanwhile, you were paying my sorority dues and my textbook costs and probably my spring break trip. And I never even thanked you. I never even asked how you were doing without Grandpa, Olivia. And now they're telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown and disappeared. But Grandma, you haven't had a breakdown, have you? You've just finally had enough of there." The unexpected profanity made me smile despite everything. "Language, Olivia. Sorry, but am I right?" I looked out at the darkening hills, at the lights beginning to twinkle in the village below. "Yes, you're right. Where are you?" "Italy. Italy." I heard the shift in her voice, surprise replacing anger. "Like the country Italy? Your grandfather bought a house here for our retirement. I'm sitting on the terrace right now looking at the Tuscan hills." A long pause, then quietly, "Is it beautiful?" "It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen." "Grandma, I need to tell you something. I need to apologize." "You don't need to apologize for anything, sweetheart. You were told lies by people you trusted. That's not your fault. But I should have known. I should have called you more. Should have asked questions." "Olivia, listen to me." I stood up, pacing the small terrace as the first stars appeared overhead. "You're 20 years old. Your job right now is to study and grow and figure out who you want to become. It's not your job to manage family finances or decode adult manipulations. But I want to do better. I want to be better. Then be better. Call me because you miss me, not because you need something. Visit me because you enjoy my company, not because you're obligated. Love me because I'm your grandmother, not because I pay your bills." Another pause. "Can I visit you in Italy?" The question caught me off guard. "Olivia, I don't know how long I'll be here. I don't care. I have spring break in 3 weeks. I can change my plans, cancel that stupid trip that you probably paid for anyway, and come see you instead. I want to meet this grandfather's dream house. I want to sit on that terrace and hear about your new life. Your new life." The phrase sent warmth through my chest. "What would your mother say?" "I don't care what my mother says. Actually, that's not true. I care. But I'm not going to let what she says control my choices anymore." Olivia's voice was growing stronger, more determined. "Grandma, I'm 20 years old and I just realized I don't really know you at all. I know the version of you that they presented to me, the grandmother who bakes cookies and sends birthday cards and needs to be handled carefully. But you're not that person, are you?" I thought about the woman who'd confronted Amelia in her hallway, who'd systematically dismantled her children's assumptions, who'd boarded a plane to Italy with no return date. "No," I said, "I'm not that person at all." "Good," Olivia said fiercely. "I can't wait to meet the real you." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the cicadas and feeling something unfamiliar stirring in my chest. For the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow. And for the first time in years, I wasn't alone. 3 weeks later, I watched Olivia emerge from the Florence airport terminal, and I barely recognized my granddaughter. Gone was the polished college student I remembered from Christmas photos, hair perfectly straightened, makeup camera ready, clothes chosen for Instagram approval. This Olivia wore faded jeans and a simple white t-shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, her face free of everything except sunglasses and a genuine smile that transformed her entire appearance. "Grandma!" She dropped her backpack and ran toward me, and I found myself caught up in an embrace that felt nothing like the perfunctory hugs I'd grown accustomed to at family gatherings. This was desperate, grateful, real. "Let me look at you," I said, holding her at arm's length. She was thinner than I remembered, but there was something solid about her presence that hadn't been there before. "You look amazing," she said, studying my face with the same intensity. "Like, actually amazing. Your tan in your hair. Did you cut it?" I touched the shorter style Isabella had convinced me to try at her salon in town. "Just a trim. It's perfect. You look." She paused, searching for words. "You look like yourself." During the drive to Tuscany, Olivia pressed her face to the passenger window like a child, exclaiming over olive groves and ancient villages, asking questions about everything we passed. Her enthusiasm was infectious, reminding me of Robert's wonder during our few international trips together. "This is it," I said as we pulled into the driveway of the Italian house. "Your grandfather's dream." Olivia stood in the garden for a long moment, taking in the bougainvillea, the lemon trees, the terrace where I'd spent hours reading and writing in the journal I'd started keeping. Then she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "He knew, didn't he? He knew you'd need this place." I think he did. That first evening, we sat on the terrace sharing pasta that Isabella had insisted on preparing for Olivia's arrival. The older woman had fussed over my granddaughter like she was her own, and I watched Olivia respond with the natural warmth that had been missing from her interactions with her parents. "Tell me about your life here," Olivia said, settling into the chair beside mine as the sun began to set. "I want to know everything." So I told her about the morning walks through the village where shopkeepers had learned my name and preferences, about the Italian lessons with Marco, the retired professor who lived down the street, about the book I'd started writing, not the novel Robert had encouraged me to attempt, but a memoir about marriage and motherhood and the slow erosion of self that can happen when love becomes service and service becomes obligation. "You're writing a book?" Olivia's eyes widened. "Grandma, that's incredible. I had no idea you wanted to write." I didn't know either, until I had the quiet to listen to my own thoughts. Olivia was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom called me yesterday." I tensed, but Olivia held up a hand. "She tried to convince me not to come. Said you were having some kind of breakdown and that seeing me might make it worse. She said I was being selfish, coming here instead of spending spring break with the family." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that maybe it was time for someone in our family to be selfish on your behalf." Olivia's voice carried an edge of steel I'd never heard before. And then I asked her point blank, "If she's having a breakdown, why haven't any of you come to check on her? Why haven't you called her directly instead of talking about her like she's a problem to be managed?" "What did she say?" "Nothing." She couldn't answer because the answer would have revealed the truth, that they don't actually care about your well-being. They care about their access to your resources. The bluntness of it should have hurt, but instead, it felt like vindication. "Olivia, I need you to understand something," I said carefully. "I don't expect you to choose sides in this. Amelia and Adam are your family too." "No." Olivia's voice was firm. "They chose sides when they decided to use me as a weapon against you. When they let me believe you were poor and fragile while you were paying my bills. When they tried to isolate you from the people who might actually support you." She leaned forward in her chair. "Grandma, I've been thinking about this for weeks and I realized something. They didn't just lie to you about your finances. They lied to me about you." "What do you mean?" "They convinced me you were this fragile old lady who needed to be protected from too much excitement or emotion. They said calling you too often might make you dependent, that I should give you space to grieve. But that was never about protecting you, was it? It was about controlling the narrative." I stared at my granddaughter, amazed by her clarity. "They wanted you isolated so you'd be desperate enough to accept their terms. And they wanted me distant so I wouldn't witness what they were doing to you." Olivia's hands clenched into fists. "Do you know what the worst part is? It almost worked. I almost became the kind of person who could ignore her grandmother's loneliness because it was convenient. But you didn't become that person. Only because you forced the truth into the open. If you hadn't left, if you hadn't made them show their real faces." Olivia shook her head. "I might have gone my whole life never knowing who you really are." We sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged overhead. Finally, Olivia spoke again. "Can I stay longer than a week?" The question surprised me. "What about school?" "I talked to my professors before I left. I can do independent study for the rest of the semester, write papers, take exams online. I don't want to go back yet. I want to spend real time with you. Time that isn't measured in holiday visits or phone calls with agendas. Olivia, your education will still be there when I'm ready for it. But this chance, this time with you, I might not get it again." She looked at me with Robert's eyes, steady and determined. Grandma, I'm 20 years old, and I just realized I've never had a real conversation with you. All my life, you've been the person who remembers birthdays and sends care packages and shows up to family events with homemade desserts. But I don't know what makes you laugh or what you dream about or what you were like before you became our grandmother. And you want to know those things? I want to know everything. The next morning, Olivia joined me for my daily walk through the village. She charmed the baker with her attempts at Italian, helped Isabella in the garden, and listened with rapt attention as Marco told stories about his years teaching literature at the University of Florence. Your grandmother, she has the soul of a writer, he told Olivia at the cafe where I'd become a regular. She sees details others miss, understands the weight of small moments. She's always been like that, Olivia said, looking at me with new appreciation. I just never paid attention before. That afternoon, we drove to a small beach I'd discovered the week before, a hidden cove accessible only by a winding path through pine trees. Olivia spread a blanket on the sand while I unpacked the picnic lunch we'd assembled together. Grandma, can I ask you something personal? I looked up from the sandwiches. Of course. Are you ever going back? The question I'd been avoiding, even in my own thoughts. I don't know. But you could stay here permanently, legally, I mean. Robert researched it thoroughly. I have residency options, healthcare, everything I'd need. I handed her a sandwich and settled beside her on the blanket. Why do you ask? Because I think you should stay. The certainty in her voice surprised me. Olivia, I think you should stay. And I think you should let Mom and Uncle Adam figure out their own lives without expecting you to fund their mistakes or validate their choices. Olivia took a bite of her sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. And I think I should transfer to a university here. What? There are American programs in Florence, Rome, even here in Tuscany. I could finish my degree in international studies, become fluent in Italian, maybe learn about a different way of living. She looked out at the rolling hills, her expression thoughtful. Or maybe I could take a gap year, work with Isabella at her pottery studio, help you with your book, figure out who I am when I'm not performing for an audience. Olivia, that's a huge decision. So was getting on a plane to Italy. So was cutting your hair and writing a book and refusing to sell your house. Olivia turned to face me fully. Grandma, for my entire life, I've been making decisions based on what other people expected from me, what Mom wanted, what my professors wanted, what my sorority sisters thought was appropriate. But sitting here with you, I feel like I'm seeing clearly for the first time. What do you see? I see that you're not the fragile old lady they painted you as. You're probably the strongest person I know. And I see that I don't want to be the kind of person who abandons someone I love because it's convenient. Olivia's voice grew stronger. I want to be the kind of person who shows up, who chooses love over comfort, truth over convenience. Olivia, your mother will never forgive me if I let you derail your life. This isn't derailing my life. This is saving it. Olivia grabbed my hands, her grip warm and sure. Grandma, I was sleepwalking through college, going through the motions because it was expected. But I'm awake now, and I want to spend my awakeness with someone who sees me as more than a project to be managed. That evening, we called the university together and arranged for Olivia's temporary leave of absence. Then, we called Isabella to ask about the pottery studio apprenticeship. Finally, with the Italian sun setting behind us and the sound of cicadas providing a soundtrack to our conversation, Olivia made one last call to her mother. Mom, it's Olivia. I'm extending my stay in Italy. No, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough. I understand you're angry, but I'm 20 years old and I get to decide how I spend my time. Actually, Mom, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm choosing Grandma because she's the only person in our family who's ever treated me like I matter more than what I can provide. Olivia ended the call and turned off her phone. Any regrets? I asked. She smiled, Robert's smile, full of quiet determination. Just one. That it took me 20 years to figure out where I belonged. As we sat together on my Italian terrace, watching the stars emerge over the Tuscan hills, I realized that my story of loss had become a story of finding. I'd lost the illusion of family that demanded my diminishment, but I'd found the reality of family that celebrated my strength. And for the first time since Robert's death, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving.